The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. It poured in thick, slanted sheets across the outskirts of Colony Sector 9, turning the dirt roads into rivers of mud and washing neon reflections into distorted colors. Most people stayed inside during storms like this. Not because of the rain, but because of what came with it. Drifters. Refugees. Things no one wanted to ask about. I shouldn't have been outside either. But when your work involves repairing atmospheric generators, you don't get to wait for better weather. If the system failed, the colony would suffocate within hours. So there I was, cold, soaked, and ankle-deep in mud, dragging my toolkit back to my shack at the edge of the settlement. That's when I saw her. At first, I thought she was just another piece of debris caught against the rusted fence line. The storm had blown in all kinds of junk, scrap metal, broken panels, even the occasional drone carcass. But then it moved. A slow, trembling shift. I froze. My first instinct was to walk away. Everyone knew better than to get involved. People didn't end up this far out unless they were running from something, or were something. Still, something about the way she clung to the fence caught me. Not desperate. Not aggressive. Just exhausted. I stepped closer, cautiously. "Hey," I called out, raising my voice over the rain. "You alive?" No response. I took another step. That's when I noticed the details. She wasn't human. Not exactly. Her skin had a faint, opalescent shimmer, like oil catching light. Her hair, if you could call it that, hung in thin, translucent strands, almost like fibers of glass. And her eyes, when they opened, they glowed faintly blue. Not bright, not threatening, just dim, like a dying light. I stopped dead. "Okay," I muttered under my breath. "Not my problem." I turned to leave. And then she spoke. "Please." It wasn't loud. It barely carried over the storm. But it stopped me anyway. I looked back. She was trying to push herself up, her hands slipping against the mud. Her entire body shook like she was running out of strength. "I don't have anywhere else." Her voice cracked, soft, broken, unfamiliar with the language. I clenched my jaw. This was exactly how people got into trouble. You help the wrong person, and next thing you know, enforcers are knocking at your door. Or worse, you disappear and no one asks questions. I should have walked away. I almost did. But then she looked at me. And in those faintly glowing eyes, there wasn't fear. There wasn't anger. There was just resignation. Like she already knew I'd leave. Like everyone else had. And for some reason, that pissed me off. "Damn it," I muttered. I walked back. She flinched as I approached, trying weakly to crawl backward. Whatever she'd been through, it had taught her not to trust anyone. "Relax," I said, holding up my hands. "If I wanted to hurt you, I wouldn't be talking first." She didn't seem convinced. Up close, she looked worse. Thin. Too thin. Parts of her skin flickered faintly, like a hologram struggling to stay stable. There were faint burn-like marks along her arms. Old, but not healed. "What happened to you?" I asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she whispered again. "Please." That was it. That single word. No explanation. No story. Just a quiet plea. I exhaled slowly. "All right," I said. "Fine. You win." She blinked, confused. I extended my hand. "Come on. You're not staying out here." Getting her back to my place wasn't easy. She could barely walk, so I ended up supporting most of her weight. She was lighter than she looked, unnaturally so. Like she wasn't entirely solid. The rain soaked us both by the time we reached my shack. It wasn't much, just a single-room structure made of salvaged panels, but it was dry. That was enough. I helped her inside and shut the door behind us. She immediately collapsed onto the floor. "Hey, easy," I said, kneeling beside her. Up close, I could see her condition clearly now. Her glow was fading. Whatever energy sustained her, it was running out. "Stay here," I said. "Don't move." Not that she could. I moved quickly, grabbing what supplies I had. My work kit wasn't exactly designed for whatever she was, but it was better than nothing. I scanned her with a handheld diagnostic tool. The readings made no sense. No standard biology. No known energy signatures. It was like trying to analyze a ghost. "Great," I muttered. "Of course you're complicated." She stirred slightly, watching me with weak curiosity. "What are you doing?" "Trying to keep you alive," I replied. "Preferably without blowing us both up." That earned the faintest flicker of something in her expression. Not quite a smile, but close. I adjusted the scanner again, focusing on the flickering energy pattern around her. "Okay," I said slowly. "You're not just injured. You're unstable." She tilted her head slightly. "Unstable?" "Yeah, like your body's phasing. In and out of something." She closed her eyes briefly. "I know." "Well, that's reassuring," I said dryly. I leaned back, thinking. If she wasn't biological in the traditional sense, then she probably didn't need food or water, not in the usual way. She needed energy. But what kind? I glanced around my shack. The only consistent power source I had was the backup generator. "Please don't explode," I muttered as I got up. I rigged a basic energy conduit, nothing fancy, just enough to redirect a small current safely. At least, I hoped it was safe. I brought the cable over and hesitated. "This might hurt," I said. She opened her eyes again, meeting mine. "It already does." "Fair point." "All right," I said. "Here goes nothing." I carefully connected the conduit to the faintly glowing lines along her arm. For a second, nothing happened. Then, a surge of light. Her entire body flickered violently, the glow intensifying before stabilizing. I jumped back, ready for the worst. But instead of collapsing, she breathed. A deep, steady breath. The glow in her eyes brightened slightly. "Warm," she whispered. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "Well," I said, "that's a good sign." The next few hours were quiet. The storm outside began to ease, replaced by the distant hum of the colony systems stabilizing again. Inside, she sat against the wall, wrapped in a spare blanket I'd given her. She looked better. Not fully recovered, but no longer on the edge of collapse. I sat across from her, watching. "So," I said, "you got a name?" She hesitated. "I did." "Had one?" I asked. She nodded slowly. "But it doesn't translate." "All right," I said. "Then we'll improvise." She blinked. "Improvise?" "Yeah. I can't keep calling you mysterious glowing person." A faint flicker of amusement crossed her face. "Any preferences?" She thought for a moment. "Something simple." I nodded. "Okay, how about Lyra?" She repeated it softly. "Lyra." Then she looked up at me. "I like it." "Good," I said. "Lyra it is." There was a pause. Then she asked the question I'd been expecting. "Why did you help me?" I leaned back, thinking. "Honestly," I said, "I'm still figuring that out." She studied me quietly. Most would not have. "Yeah," I said. I noticed. Another pause. "I was not supposed to be here," she said finally. "Let me guess," I replied. "Something went wrong." She gave a small nod. "I was taken." That got my attention. "Taken? By who?" She looked down. "Your people." I frowned. "Not my people," I said. "I just fix machines." "They studied me," she continued. Try to understand what I am. Her hands tightened slightly around the blanket. When they could not, they tried to take it apart. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the rain. You escaped? She nodded. Barely. That explained the injuries. The instability. Everything. I ran a hand through my hair. Great, I muttered. So, I'm officially harboring something the colony probably wants back. She looked at me, her expression unreadable. Will you turn me in? I met her gaze. For a moment, I considered it. It would be easier. Safer. But then I remembered the way she'd looked at the fence. The way she'd said, please. I shook my head. No, I said simply. Her eyes widened slightly. Why? I shrugged. Because you had nowhere else to go. She stared at me for a long moment, and then quietly, until you spoke. The knock came the next morning. Loud. Sharp. Official. I froze. Lyra looked at me, fear flickering across her face. They found me, she whispered. Maybe not, I said, though I didn't believe it. The knock came again. Colony enforcement, a voice called. Open up. I sighed. Well, I muttered. Guess we're doing this. I looked at Lyra. Hide. She hesitated. Now, I said. She moved quickly, slipping behind a panel I'd loosened earlier. I took a deep breath and opened the door. 2 enforcers stood outside, rain dripping from their uniforms. Morning, one of them said. We're looking for a fugitive. Join the club, I replied. Half this sector's a mess. He didn't smile. She's not human, he continued. If you've seen anything unusual. Nope, I said. He studied me carefully. Mind if we take a look inside? I shrugged. Go ahead. They stepped in, scanning the room. My heart pounded as they moved closer to Lyra's hiding spot. One more step, and they'd find her. I clenched my fists. Then, a flicker. The lights dimmed suddenly, the generator sputtering. What the? One of them muttered. Power issue, I said quickly. Been happening all week. They exchanged a glance. Let's move, the other said. We're wasting time. A moment later, they were gone. I closed the door slowly. Silence filled the room. Then Lyra stepped out. You lied for me. I exhaled. Yeah, I said. Looks like I did. She looked at me, her glowing eyes steady now. No longer fading. No longer afraid. Then I will not leave. I raised an eyebrow. Not exactly what I expected you to say. She took a step closer. You gave me a place when I had none. Another step. I will stay until you ask me to go. I considered that. Then I smiled slightly. Good, I said, because I could use the help. She tilted her head. With what? I glanced toward the door. Surviving, I said. And for the first time since I'd met her, Lyra smiled.